Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. I am Gulo from Jadi PNS, will be your host. Now we are with Laura Young, or known as Les West Laura from Glasgow, United Kingdom. She is a climate activist and founder of Les West Warriors. Hello, Laura. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are really excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, where were you and how old were you when you first realized that you wanted to advocate for climate justice?
A great question. I grew up in Glasgow in Scotland, and I absolutely loved visiting lots of different bits of my own country when I went on holiday. And that's when I really started to get a love of the outdoors. We've got beautiful beaches and forests and all this like natural beauty. I'm sure loads of people have similar stories about where they're from. So from a really young age, I've been interested in the environment in terms of being outside, being in nature. And when I was at school, so I think when I was about 16, that was when we had to make the decision about what we wanted to do when you leave school. And I wanted to go to university. I wanted to go and study further. And my favorite subject in school was geography, which
Wow.
probably makes sense because I loved being outside. I love the outdoors and I love learning about the planet. So I went on to study geography and environmental science at university. But I probably wouldn't have called myself a climate activist. It was just what I was studying, it was just what I was learning about. But it was in my final year, so it was 2018, that I really started to think about, okay, what does this mean for me as an individual? I don't just want to learn, I want to do something, I want to have a career in this, but I also just want to try and play my part as an individual. So it was 2018 when I really started to think about, okay, what am I going to do as an individual? How am I going to, change my habits? I started with like making a New Year's resolution. I know that people make them and try and think of something fun. And mine was all about sustainability. So at the end of university, I was maybe 20, 21. And that was when I really started to, I guess, call myself a climate activist or think about, how I just wanted to do my part to help the planet. But I've always had an interest in the environment and I've always wanted to, I guess, work in the environmental space and spend my free time out in the beautiful world that we have.
All right, awesome. And then how do you tell the community about climate change?
Great question again. I mean, I think in a whole variety of ways now. I have kind of social media spaces that I'm in. And I talk a lot about climate and environmental issues. And I try and take a lot of my academic background and try and translate it into just everyday language that people can understand and try and share news stories and what that means maybe in real life, or maybe take political issues and explain them in environmental terms or whatever it might be. And I do a lot of work on social media. So that's across, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. I'm beginning to make videos. I'm
Wow.
trying. But also I do a lot of work in the kind of traditional media. So radio, TV interviews, I guess bringing on a different voice, bringing on a young voice, bringing on a voice of a kind of activist, someone who isn't necessarily tied to a company or a corporation. And so a lot of the work that I do is also kind of in the public space. It's radio, TV, and lots of events, going into schools or speaking to businesses. So really it's a big range of stuff, but I kind of love that it's different and it looks different every day.
Great answer. And then in 2021, at the annual Summit Conference of Parties, or COP26 in Glasgow, UK, you were among the youth delegation. What was it like?
Well, it was really interesting because COP26 came to my hometown. So, this whole big world conference of the United Nations came 10 minutes away from where I live and where I've grown up. So it was like a once in a lifetime opportunity to be there, to be inside, and I guess to be a young person, looking around the conference, there wasn't that many young people. And I think there were some organizations that gave passes to young people. So like I would be an example of that. But there really wasn't that many. So it felt like there was a big weight on the shoulder of the young people in there to, get our voices heard and to kind of speak up for the many young people who didn't get in. But it was also a great opportunity to be in there. And, I really, I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity and hope that other young people get to go to future ones. Not that I hope we have to keep having them. I hope that we, solve this problem without having to do that. But COP was interesting. I mean, we didn't get everything we needed. We got progress, but we didn't get justice. That's the kind of line that I keep using, because we definitely took steps in the right direction, but we didn't go far enough. And I think particularly for young people, it was quite frustrating because, it's the future of the younger generations more than it is those who often are the ones making the decisions. So there was a bit of frustration, but it was a good experience to be a part of, definitely.
Wow, that's a great experience. Just 10 minutes away from your place. And then what are the most pressing issues about climate change in the world now?
Another great question. I think, a big one that's probably come out in the last few weeks has been the conversation of energy. Where do countries get their energy from? And we've seen that because political unrest, global unrest, or even as we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine war, can have a huge impact on the kind of global trade of everything, but energy is a big one. And so I think one of the big problems we are now seeing is almost a resurgence of countries thinking about, do we need to be making or producing our own oil and gas and fossil fuels, which is a huge thing that we need to be moving away from. We've seen a great transition towards renewable energies and green and clean, but I guess political unrest, global unrest can cause things to really turn bad again. And so I think that's one thing that's kind of come out of left field that we didn't really see going to happen. So that's a big thing. And I think really it's just that it's the transition away from fossil fuels in general is the biggest thing that we need to be tackling, and really getting countries to see that net zero is a good thing. It's a good thing for people. It's a good thing for the planet, and it can be profitable. It doesn't have to be, a thing that's going to harper the kind of progress of countries. So I think there's loads of things that, stand in the way of climate change. I guess also just between everyday people, there's just a lot of confusion, frustration, tiredness about hearing about it. And that all plays into, a big barrier when it comes to climate.
Great answer. Thank you, Laura. And how does it feel to be a female climate activist?
Do you know, it's interesting because I think there's loads of women in the climate space, but often we are the kind of grassroots, we're the ones doing lots of the work. I mean, when I go to events about climate, so whether it's, climate in fashion, climate in food, climate in whatever, or if I go to conferences or I go to marches or meetings and activist groups, often it's majority women who are there. And I think I don't know why. I mean, there's probably lots of studies out there that tell you about, I don't know, nurturing or, that responsibility that we might have. But it's interesting because I feel quite supported by other females in the movement.
Wow.
But the more I've been working with business leaders and governments, that is a lot more of the male dominated space. And I think that's kind of historic. We just don't have a lot of females in a lot of those roles. So it's quite interesting to see the dynamic between, grassroots activist organizations, from the ground up being quite female dominated versus, business and government when it's kind of top down and it's a lot of male spaces. It's kind of interesting to see the split. And I hope that we kind of get closer to bringing 50-50 in both of those areas.
Well, such an amazing experience. And then what is your message for young people out there about climate change?
I guess it would be, I guess I always want to be hopeful. I don't think climate doomism or, being really negative about climate is helpful for anyone. And actually, the good thing to remember is that we have the solutions to climate. We know what the problem is and we know how we need to get away from it, but we just need to get moving. We just need to do it. And I guess just my message to young people is just keep raising your voice. Young people don't realize how much their voice has helped, in conversations. It's sped up a lot of processes. It's put a lot of energy and momentum into movements that didn't have it before. So I guess just, keep going. But also the best thing really is that there's a whole generation of people coming through school, coming through college, apprenticeships, university, and entering the workplace with this mindset of, wanting to fight for climate change. And soon those young people will be in rooms with decision makers and can really help make the change. And so just to keep going, but to just find others around you, find that community to help, kind of bring each other on and help us all do it at a sustainable pace.
Amazing. And then last but not least, what is your hope, Laura's hope for a better world?
I mean, my personal hope is that I don't need to be a climate activist, that we solve this, and we don't have to be, fighting for our planet and for like global neighbors, people all around the world. I guess my hope is that we just really look past our own personal gain or kind of country borders, and we actually just see that creating a world that's better for everyone is better for everyone, and I think that's really important that we do that, and I just hope we can get there, and I know that we will, because we have to, but it's just that's my big hope.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Laura, for your inspiring story.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Let's collaborate to make this world into a better place. I am Gulo from Jadi PNS. Thank you and see you again.